I never imagined a gang would target me, a humble farmer, until they discovered my secret past. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The sun hung low in the sky, casting eerie shadows across my fields. It was just another ordinary day, or so I thought. I was plowing the land, hands trembling around the worn handles of the plow. The air was thick with a sweet smell of earth, mixed with something sinister waiting to erupt. That's when I saw them. A cluster of dark figures standing at the edge of my property, their faces hidden under hoods. My heart raced. I stumbled back, my breath hitching in my throat. The gang didn't just come for my crops, they came looking for the past I buried deep. Flashes of my old life rushed back. The thrill of running through the streets, the adrenaline of races that ended in near disasters. It was a different person who reveled in danger, reckless and wild. But that was years ago. I thought I had left it all behind, that my family didn't know, and I swore to keep it that way. My younger sister, Clara, still believed I was just a farmer, a protector of our land. Her laughter rang out like music as we picked apples together in the orchard. I could still hear it now, clear as day. I didn't want her to see me like this, surrounded by chaos. But as the gang stepped closer, I couldn't shield her. Their voices cut through the stillness like knives. "We know what you did. We won't let you forget." Each word dripped with malice, sending chills down my spine. Panic surged within me. What did they want? Was it revenge? I had changed. I had fought to be better. Was my past going to destroy everything I loved? The leader stepped forward, a twisted smile lurking beneath the hood. I felt the world close in, silence heavy as my heart thundered in my chest. "We have something that belongs to you," he sneered. I didn't understand. My mind raced, searching for a way out. The shadows loomed large, stretching out across the ground as desperation clawed at my throat. They couldn't take me back there. But what if they had someone? Someone to use against me, to pull me back into the darkness? And then I saw it, glinting in the dirt. A small, silver locket. The one I thought I had lost years ago, locked away with memories I buried. My hands shook as I reached for it. I could feel them watching me, the tension thick around us. "Pick it up," the leader commanded. His eyes sparkled with wicked delight. "Or maybe you'll decide to leave this all behind forever." My heart sank. I was teetering on the edge, the choice looming. What would I sacrifice to protect those I loved? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As I crouched there, my fingers trembling above the locket glinting in the dirt, the weight of 1,000 memories slammed into my chest. The laughter, the reckless nights, the friends who had vanished into shadows of their own, all woven together in the shimmering silver of that trinket. It was a curse and a blessing, a reminder of who I once was, and a token of the life I desperately wanted to leave behind. I could sense the gang's anticipation, their excitement coiling like a snake ready to strike. The leader leaned in closer, tauntingly whispering, "It's a beautiful piece, isn't it? A reminder of all the secrets you've tried to bury." His breath was hot and vile, filling me with revulsion and fear. Clara was nowhere in sight, but I could almost feel her presence, a comforting shadow at my back, pushing me onward. I imagined her trusting smile, the way she looked at me like I could conquer the world. With a quaking hand, I let my resolve slip momentarily. "What do you want?" I managed to croak, my voice barely a whisper against the mocking laughter that erupted around me. The leader straightened, satisfaction dancing in his eyes. "You know what we want, farmer boy. You owe us." Then it hit me. They weren't just after me, they were after Clara too. "If you harm her," he interrupted with a sing-song lilt. "Oh, is that what this is truly about? The sweet little sister in the orchard? Remember this. We're all capable of darkness. The question isn't if it will swallow you, but when. It was all too much. The memories, the threats, the twisted nostalgia of a life that felt so far away it nearly collapsed upon me. Just let her go, I pleaded, my voice untouched by the courage I had hoped it would hold. She has nothing to do with this. His laughter echoed ominously. You're forgetting, old friend, she's the key to making you comply. A sudden burst of hope clawed its way into my chest. I straightened, steeling myself. I could not let fear dictate my choices. The past had its hooks in me, but standing among them, I felt something rise up within, a defiance ignited by the raw love I had for Clara. You don't know what I'd do to protect her. And that's the beauty of it, he said, a smile creeping over his face. Well, find out soon enough. I turned towards the locket, its surface reflecting the fading rays of the sun. It was a tangible link to my past, yet it also held the power to the future I yearned to protect. The decision lay before me like an uncut path through the fog. My heart raced as I bent down to pick it up, but a rustle from the orchard froze me. My breath hitched. Clara. My sister stepped out from behind a tree, her eyes wide with confusion and fear. What's happening? She cried, her voice piercing the darkness enveloping us. The sight of her was both a balm and a curse. I knew then that I had to shield her from this, but how could I do that? I felt raw panic surge again, my body caught between the urge to flee and the need to protect. The gang's laughter turned into something deeper, wrenching and cruel. There she is. The little bird in the cage. The leader sneered, stepping forward, that twisted smile deepening. Get back, I shouted, my heart pounding as I struggled with the weight of my past and the safety of my sister. Clara quivered, her gaze darting between the hovering shadows and my tense figure. What do they want from us? Pain lanced through me like a knife. They want me to pay a price, I said, feeling the truth of those words. Then, the unexpected happened. From behind Clara's shoulder, an old neighbor emerged, his expression fierce but wary. Mr. Hawkins, a grizzled veteran with a cane, stood firm, anger spilling from his eyes which had seen too much suffering. You leave that girl alone, he growled, stepping forward, resolute despite the odds. The gang turned their attention to him, surprise flickering across their faces. I saw a small glimmer of hope sparkling in Mr. Hawkins' determination. He had seen my childhood, my misdeeds, yet here he was, drawing a line in the sand. But just as tension reached its boiling point, the leader waved a hand, dismissing the old man. This doesn't concern you, old man. Run along while you still can. Mr. Hawkins didn't budge, his stance unwavering. I won't let you harm them, not like this. And then, something shifted within me, a flicker of newfound strength kindling against the overwhelming fear. I stepped closer to Clara, who held onto my arm as if anchoring me to reality. You can't have her, I said, making a vow not only to her but to myself. But the moment of defiance was cut short when Clara whispered, "What about Mom?" My heart dropped like a stone. She would be the one thing they could use against us if they sought to exploit our family bonds. The relentless gnawing fear clawed at my insides again, growing sharper with each second. Mom is safe, I lied, but as the weight of her truth sank deeper in my heart, it felt like an unbearable burden. The leader narrowed his eyes, clearly sensing the fear. Then let's see how much you care when we come for her next. Silence fell thick between us, heavy and foreboding. My heart raced as I stared into the darkness, uncertainty crawling over my skin. I felt the fragile threads of my past weaving around me once again. Remember this, the leader hissed, stepping back, satisfied as he disappeared into the shadows surrounding us. The debt isn't settled yet. With his gang fading into the night, I felt my resolve wobbling, uncertainty clawing at my insides. I turned to see Clara's eyes glistening with confusion, fear, and something else, a flicker of hope I wasn't sure I still possessed. I knelt to her level, grasping her small shoulders tightly in my hands. I promise you, I'll protect you. No one will touch our family. But as I spoke those words, My heart sank with the realization that I could not steer us clear of the storm brewing. We were caught in a whirlwind I might not be able to control, and as I heard the echo of the leader's laughter haunt the air, I knew the battle was only beginning. In the days that followed, a heavy cloud loomed over our small home, the kind that settled in your bones and made every creak of the floorboards sound like the whisper of danger. Clara was uncharacteristically quiet, her laughter that once danced through the halls replaced by a heavy silence that wrapped around us like a shroud. I felt the weight of my sworn promise pressing down on my chest, a stone that grew heavier with each delayed moment of peace. Though I tried to assure her that everything would be all right, I knew deep inside that I was on borrowed time. The gang was relentless, and their leader's words replayed in my mind, each utterance twisting like a dagger. The thought of Clara in danger and, worse yet, being used to get to me kept me restless. I should have pulled her closer and shielded her from it all, but instead, I found myself drowning in a sea of uncertainty. One evening, as the shadows grew long and the sun surrendered to darkness, I decided to visit the orchard. It was Clara's favorite place, a sanctuary filled with memories of sunlight filtering through the leaves and laughter echoing among the rows of trees. I hoped it might bring even a sliver of comfort to both of us. As I wandered through the familiar trees, their branches twisting like arms, I spotted her, perched on a low branch, her legs swinging freely. "Hey," I called, feigning lightness I didn't feel. "What are you doing up there?" She looked down at me, a small frown tucked into her lips. "Just thinking," she replied, her voice soaked with a quiet sadness. The words pricked at my heart. "What about?" I asked, walking toward her. "About Mom," she said softly, lowering her gaze back to the ground. "Every time you say she's safe, I can't help but wonder, what if she's next? What if we lose everything?" My chest tightened, the truth of her words exploding like fireworks in my mind. I didn't have the answers, and I didn't want to burden her with my fears of a past that loomed ominously. "We won't lose anything, Clara. I promise you," I repeated, hoping the weight of my words could somehow ward off the shadows threatening to creep closer. She swung her legs for a moment, then turned her gaze back to me, her expression serious. "What if you're not strong enough to protect me?" Her question struck deep, a dart aimed straight at my growing insecurities. I forced a smile, but it felt like a brittle mask. "I'll find a way. I'll always do whatever it takes." As she climbed down, brushing dirt from her skirts, I could see the doubt etched on her features. "But the gang, they're not just going to go away on their own." A wave of frustration washed over me, tinged with despair. I felt cornered, my options limited. The helplessness clung to me like a second skin. "I know," I replied, my voice low, "but there has to be something we can do." Clara's expression shifted, a flicker of determination breaking through the clouds of worry. "What if we told someone? Maybe Mr. Hawkins could help?" I considered her suggestion, biting back a reluctance that fizzled in my gut. "Mr. Hawkins is brave, but he's not invincible. Bringing him into this could put him in harm's way too." She looked away, frustration mounting in her silence. I reached out to place a hand on her shoulder, softening my tone. "What do you think we should do?" And then she surprised me. "Maybe we should go back to the old barn, look through Dad's things. He might have left something that could help. Before everything went wrong." The barn was a relic of a time before shadows crowded our Levisa beacon of happier memories, but also a mausoleum of lost dreams. I hesitated at the thought. "Wouldn't stirring old pain only invite more chaos?" "Clara, please, Rowan," she said, her voice soft but insistent. "If we have any chance of coming up with a plan, we should look for something, anything." Her eyes glittered with an unyielding hope, and against every rational inclination to resist, I felt my heart yield, if only slightly. "All right," I said finally, steeling myself for what lay ahead. "Let's go." As we made our way to the barn, the familiar creaks and groans of its old wood welcomed us like an old friend. Dust hung heavy in the air, motes illuminated by slender shafts of light that sliced through the cracks. I felt Clara's small hand clutching mine, our connection a thread amidst the uncertainty that surrounded us. Inside, we started sifting through stacks of forgotten memories, old tools, broken furniture, and boxes filled with remnants of a life long eclipsed. Each item seemed to speak to me, echoes of laughter and warmth intertwined with the sorrow of loss. Clara's enthusiasm gave me a glimmer of renewed vigor, and I couldn't help but admire her bravery. She was the brightness in a world dulled by fear. "Look," she exclaimed, pulling open the latch on a dusty old trunk. The wood creaked as it opened, revealing a set of weathered maps and documents, relics of my father's diligence and foresight. "Maybe there's something we can use." I rifled through the papers, my heart racing with unfulfilled hope, but as I scanned the inked maps, a chilling realization washed over me. Among them was an old parking lot address I had long forgotten. It was a place tied to my childhood, to my father's dealings when he had once dabbled in desperate measures to shield us from what was lurking. My hands trembled as I lifted the parcel, memories flooding back, meetings that filled the air with tension, whispered conversations about debts, and always the feeling of being on the edge of some impending peril. "Clara," but before I could finish, the door to the barn flew open, and the shadows from outside poured in. Panic surged through me like wildfire, and I turned to see the leader of the gang, flanked by two menacing figures. Well, if it isn't the farmer boy and his little sister," he drawled, a twisted grin spreading across his face. "Didn't expect to find you here, digging up secrets." Fear clutched my heart as I realized, with horror, they had followed us. My voice came out strained as I stepped defensively in front of Clara, the weight of the parcel slipping from my fingers. "What do you want?" I managed to say, my throat dry with dread. He stepped closer, eyes gleaming with malice. "You know exactly what we want. And trust me, we won't be so forgiving this time." As he advanced, reality hit with the force of a tidal wave. I could no longer hide from the past nor the danger that had come to claim us. With a heart that thudded wildly, I felt the room spinning, the walls closing in. The stakes had risen impossibly high, and this was no mere chance encounter. This was the point of no return. The question was no longer if I could protect Clara, but rather how far I was willing to go to save us both from the wrath of a darkness I had tried so desperately to escape. And just as the shadows moved in, dark, hungry, and alive, the echoes of my past beckoned, promising that everything I feared was about to be unearthed. I braced myself, knowing that this battle was just beginning, but for the first time, I wondered if I had the strength to fight it. The oppressive gloom of the barn seemed to thicken, each breath a reminder of the danger that loomed mere steps away. I felt Clara's small body tremble behind me, and for a fleeting second, I cursed the course my life had taken. My pulse quickened as I stepped farther in front of her, the weight of resolve settling in my bones. "What do you want?" I repeated, my voice steadying despite the chaos swirling around us. Clara was counting on me, and I couldn't afford to falter. The gang leader chuckled, a sound devoid of warmth. "You know, it's amusing how the innocent find themselves mixed up with the likes of us. But that'll change, won't it? All this stubbornness, it only makes for a more entertaining story." His words dripped with malice, a pointed reminder of a game I never intended to play. My heart raced, but I wouldn't let fear consume me. "If this is about the loan, I save it," he interrupted, stepping forward, his eyes narrowing. "We're not here for money. We came for you and your sister." A shudder ran through me at the insinuation, and I instinctively turned my head, casting a quick glance over my shoulder at Clara. Her small frame, quaking in its entirety, ignited my protective instincts. No matter the odds, I needed to shield her from whatever darkness lay ahead. "Step aside, boy. This doesn't concern you," he sneered, gesturing to his companions, who stood glowering, arms crossed, emanating an aura of impending violence, but I wasn't about to allow that. The memories of my father's last words echoed in my mind, rooted in defiance, steeped in the awareness of sacrifice. I couldn't let them take Clara. There had to be a way out of this. "You think you can intimidate us?" I said, placing my hands on my hips and standing tall. "We're not afraid of you or your threats." His smile only widened, a predatory gleam in his eyes. "Brave words, boy. But we've dealt with stubborn fools before. You know how this goes." And you know the price of defiance. The moment hung suspended in the air, heavy like lead. The darkness seemed to breathe, an unseen force tightening around us. And then, within that charged silence, a small spark flickered to life in my chest, a feral instinct that slipped through the cracks of my carefully constructed fear. Clara tugged at my sleeve, her voice trembling. "Rowan, what do we do?" A surge of fierce protectiveness roared inside of me, and I felt the distance of hopelessness narrow. "We don't run. We won't be cowed," I whispered to her, turning back to face the gang leader, the fire growing hotter. "Get out of here and leave us alone." But he laughed, a harsh, sharp sound that reverberated against the barn walls. "You really think you can refuse us, farmer? Your bravado will only get you hurt or worse." It was the her that cut through me. Clara's safety was my paramount priority, but the implications of his words sank deeper than any blade could cut. If they were willing to toy with fear, what other threats lingered in their minds? I couldn't seize the risk of escalating violence, not now. When Clara needed me most, "I won't let you hurt her," I declared, forcing strength into my words, but my mind raced, grasping at straws. Delivers a thought, a desperate strategy without certainty. A moment passed, the air still, thick with anticipation. And then, without warning, a crash echoed from the opposite side of the barn, drawing the gang leader's attention. The entrance to the barn shuddered, and dust cascaded from the rafters above, obscuring my view. "Damn it," he spat, turning to bark at his men. "Keep an eye on them." Clara and I exchanged a glance, a mingling of confusion and concern. This was our moment, a crack in the cage that might just allow for escape. "Run," I whispered urgently, gripping her hand as I could feel the adrenaline surging through me. "We have to go now." With our retreat set into motion, we dashed toward the shadows, hearts pounding in sync as we raced deeper into the barn. Hope flickered for the briefest moment that perhaps we could slip through the shadows unnoticed, but just as we rounded a corner, we collided with an unexpected figure. "Rowan! Clara!" A voice called out, and I froze at Mr. Hawkins appeared, his brow furrowed, eyes sharp with determination that spilled into a protective force wrapping around us. "I came to help." I heard the ruckus. Before I could process the revelation or express my gratitude, the gang leader's men surged forward, their eyes wide with recognition. "You shouldn't have come here," I shouted, panic flaring as I struggled to grasp the sudden influx of allies amidst the chaos. Mr. Hawkins stepped in front of us, his defiant stance radiating bravery. "Get them out of here, Rowan. I'll hold them off." "No." My voice erupted, a desperate plea mingled with urgency. I couldn't let him face them. Alanite felt like inviting chaos into our fragile moment of hope, but he glanced back over his shoulder, his expression grave yet resolute. "You have to protect her. Go now." Adrenaline surged through me as we sprinted toward the back of the barn, Clara clutching my arm tightly. I could hear the ruckus of shifting bodies near the entrance, and my heart raced for Mr. Hawkins. The thought of leaving him behind cut deeper than any pain I had felt before. We pushed through a side door, bursting into the open air and into the cool evening night. My lungs drank in the scents of hay and damp earth, each breath tinged with urgency. "Where do we go? What do we do?" Clara's voice trembled, panic and fear entwined. "Just run," I urged, squeezing her hand. "We have to get far away." But as we raced across the field, a chilling realization hit me. Mr. Hawkins might be fighting for us, but how long could he hold them off on his own? And what would the cost be? The shadows of night wrapped around us, muffling the distant sounds of chaos behind, but the threat was far from over. I glanced back once, expecting to see the dark figures emerging out of the barn's door. Instead, I was met with a sudden pause that sent a shiver down my spine. Something wasn't right. The sense of dread swallowed whole the flickers of hope that had momentarily ignited in my chest. A weight sank into my gut as I pulled Clara along, the open expanse of the field stretching unforgivingly before us. And just as the ominous clouds began to roll in on the horizon, I couldn't shake the foreboding feeling that our very steps were leading us headfirst into another storm, one that would test every ounce of the strength I had left. The question of survival loomed larger than ever, each stride a reminder of the impending fate that awaited us. The wind tore through the field, cold fingers wrapping around us as we dashed away from the barn where our fragile hope had been forged. Clara's small frame lagged slightly behind me, her breaths coming in desperate gasps. I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders, and I cursed the night, its dark expanse filled with unseen dangers that now not only haunted me but threatened my sister as well. As we reached the edge of the field, I dared to glance back, the haunting shadows of the barn far behind us, yet the memories lingered like an acrid smoke. An uneasy stillness fell in the air, the chaos fading to distant echoes. I could only hope that Mr. Hawkins had held them off, buying us precious moments to distance ourselves from the looming threat. Rowan. Clara's voice was tinged with worry as she stumbled slightly, and my heart clenched. I slowed my pace. "I'm here," I reassured her, kneeling to her height, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Her wide eyes glistened with fear, and it stung to see her so terrified. "We just need to find a safe place to hide." She nodded, but I could see in her gaze that trust was slipping away, a veneer chipped by the events unfolding too quickly, too cruelly around us. With every passing second, the weight of uncertainty bore down on my chest. As we crept through the tall grass, I realized we needed more than just a hiding spot. We needed a plan. A sanctuary. Something to protect us from the wrath of those men who had already threatened to tear our lives apart. "We could go to the old shed by the creek," I suggested, half remembering the stories my father used to tell of its sturdy walls and hidden nooks. "Will they find us there?" Clara's voice was a whisper, laced with a fear too real for her young heart. I swallowed hard, straining to sound confident. "I don't know, but for now it's our best chance." We set off, moving toward the direction of the creek, each step a desperate plea for safety. As we navigated through the uneven terrain, I pushed the shadows of doubt aside. I focused on Clara, her trembling hands needing my strength. She drew closer, and I could feel the warmth of her small body, her innocence, a bittersweet reminder of what we stood to lose. After what felt like an eternity, we arrived at the old shed. I held my breath as we slipped inside, the musty air thick with a scent of damp wood. It was a relic of my childhood, and the faintness of the past coaxed forth melancholy memories of days spent exploring the land, oblivious to the shadows that now sought to consume us. Inside, we huddled against the wall, shadows dancing through the gaps in the rotting timbers as I held Clara close. She buried her face in my shoulder, her small frame shaking. "What if they find us?" she murmured, the dread pooling between us like a dark well. "Clara," I whispered, brushing my fingers through her hair. "Well, stay quiet. They won't think to look here." We listened intently, the world outside muffled as if wrapped in cotton. I wished for the comforting presence of Mr. Hawkins, whose bravery had inspired me, but now felt like a distant echo. Would he be okay? I couldn't shake the tight knot of anxiety in my chest, each tick of the clock counting down the moments that could decide our fates. Then, my heart dropped. A distant sound cut through the evening quieta noise echoed on the wind, a mechanical hum that I recognized far too well. "They're cars," I whispered in horror, eyes wide as Clara pulled back slightly to meet my gaze. "They're looking for us." Just as I finished speaking, a beam of light pierced through a crack in the shed's walls, illuminating our hidden corner in an orange glow. It flickered and danced, revealing our breathless forms in stark relief. My heart raced, and for a moment I was paralyzed. I needed to act, but every part of me resisted the thought of moving. "Stay still," I murmured, feeling Clara's body tighten against mine. She was scared. We both were, but I fought to maintain the grip on my own resolve. But that same resolve began to shatter when heavy footsteps crunched outside, their low voices mingling with the stillness of night. "They've got to be around here somewhere." I slowly pressed my ear against the wall, straining to catch each fragment. My heart raced uncomfortably as dread curled deep in my stomach. It was only a matter of time before they realized we had vanished, the stakes taller than before. Then Clara surprised me. She pulled out a small flashlight that had slipped from one of her pockets earlier, a remnant of childhood adventures. "We can try to signal," she whispered, her courage striking against the encroaching darkness. And oh, I hissed, panic rising within me. "We can't let them know we're here." But as I said those words, my heart wavered. Was there any chance of us getting out of this alive without drawing attention to ourselves? The tension hung thickly as the footsteps drew nearer. Time was slipping away. My mind raced through alternatives, desperate to find a way out. And then something strange happened. A faint sound bloomed through the silencia, soft, melodic whistling that cut through the oppressive tension, mingling with the rustling leaves. What in the world? Clara's eyes widened in surprise. "Do you hear that?" There it was again, a gentle tune whistled by a voice I didn't recognize. It felt surreal, an odd juxtaposition against the dark stakes of our current predicament. With each note, a sliver of hope crept into the corners of my heart, intermingled with curiosity. Who was that? I pondered, listening harder. Maybe it was a passerby, or perhaps someone who didn't know our plight. Did they unknowingly carry the power to save us? But just as I began to wonder, the whistling stopped abruptly, cut short by an exclamation that sent chills down my spine. "Search here." They couldn't have gotten far. Clara's hand squeezed mine tightly, her eyes flooding with fear, and I realized we had reached a new precipice of this harrowing journey. As footsteps approached closer than ever, I felt the weight of past choices crashing down around us, unrelenting and heavy. In the dim light of the shed, I clutched Clara to me as if I could shelter her from it all. But deep down, I knew the truth. Our lives were tangled in a web spun by a dangerous foe, and now it was time to confront the shadows that had come for us at last. The sound of my heart thudded painfully against my ribs, each beat a persistent reminder of our precarious situation. I pressed my back against the wall, wishing more than anything to become one with the shadows around us. Clara's gaze flickered between fear and an innocent hope that I fought to preserve, even as the threat drew ominously nearer. "Rowan, what do we do?" she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. "Shoo." I hushed her, holding my finger to my lips. At that moment, all I could do was pray for the whistler to reappear, for some glimmer of fate to intervene. I strained against the hopelessness that threatened to claw at me, feeling the weight of every failure resonating in my bones. What had I done to attract their attention? What secret from my past had spawned this chaos? The question swirled, dizzying and relentless, but now is not the time for self-recrimination. Now is the time to act. The footsteps stopped abruptly outside the shed, and I couldn't help but tense, waiting for the sound of the door creaking open. Clara's small hand found mine again, her grip alarmingly tight. "Please, just stay quiet," I murmured, my voice trembling despite my efforts to sound resolute. I wondered if the clandestine past I had thought lay buried forever had come back to haunt me, bringing my sister into its wicked grasp. Then a voice, gruff and menacing, echoed from outside. "They must be hiding in here. I can smell it." Panic flooded my veins. I had to think. I shifted my focus, searching for any escape route, my thoughts racing faster than the shadows creeping closer. My eyes darted around the room, landing on the window near the ceiling, obscured by tangled vines that could give us cover, but were barely accessible. An idea sparked, fragile yet bright. "Clara, can you climb?" My question was filled with urgency as I scanned her face for hope. She nodded, albeit cautiously, her small brow furrowed in uncertainty. "I'll try." "Okay, good." I could still hear the men outside, their voices mingling with the raw stench of fear that hung heavy in our hiding place. If Clara was going to escape, we needed to be swift. I began to boost her gently, hands clasped around her waist as she scrambled up angrily, reaching for the edge of the window. But as she clutched the sill, my heart twisted. Would she get out safely? Would they see her? My breath caught in my throat as I felt the tense seconds slip away. "Clara, hurry," I urged, trying to inch my grip up the wall with her. Then the door splintered open, crashing against the wooden frame with a violent echo. My body went rigid, my heart plummeting. Two figures entered, their outlines dark and imposing as they breached our sanctuary. The flashlight beams danced chaotically across the shed, illuminating the panic on Clara's face. I heard the men's mutterings, their low voices thick with malice. They have to be here. I was acutely aware that we were trapped, me sister almost free, but not quite. Clara, go, I whispered with urgency, holding my breath as she twisted her body toward the opening. Just then, a sharp intake of breath filled the space, and one of the men pointed toward us. There. In that moment of chaos, I felt time slow down. With one last surge of adrenaline, Clara kicked her legs forward, vaulting through the window just as I felt the rough hands of the intruder clasp around my arm. Her anguished cry echoed in my ears as I saw her tumble to the ground below. Rowan! The sound of my name was a desperate plea, and for an instant, I was frozen with the weight of the world pressing against my chest. I fought against the grasp that held me, twisting violently, but the man was stronger, pulling me back toward the darkness I had hoped to escape. Got one. He yelled triumphantly, and panic surged through me, fueled by Clara's terrified face that flashed in my mind. Let her go, I shouted, caught between rage and fear as the second man advanced, casting a shadow over me. She's just a child, not for long if we can't find the other one, the first man hissed through clenched teeth. Secure him. We're not leaving. Without the girl, with sheer desperation, I fought harder, adrenaline giving me ephemeral moments of strength. I twisted, lunged, and kicked, hoping to break free for a second, a chance, anything but the moment was fleeting. Yet outside, an unexpected burst of light illuminated the clearing around the shed, a shimmering glow that was almost blinding. It flickered in and out, weaving through the trees like the ethereal echoes of that haunting whistle. In a flash, I saw an unmistakable silhouette rushing in the direction I'd hoped might come. The world had shrunk to a bubble of chaos and shadow as the grip of the man holding me tightened. My vision blurred with adrenaline, but within the haze, one thought crystallized. I could not let them get Clara. She was out there somewhere, and the fear in her eyes fueled my will to fight. Let go of me, I shouted, pitching my voice louder than the roar of panic that welled within. I knew they could see the truth in my eyes, the desperation that came from years of wrongs haunting my every step. It fueled a fire I wasn't ready to extinguish. With a fierce twist, I rammed my shoulder against the man, using my weight to free myself from his grasp. For a fleeting moment, I was surprised by my own strength, but the reprieve was brief. As he stumbled, the second man lunged, and I barely sidestepped, feeling the whoosh of air as his hand grazed my shoulder. Where is she? He snarled, but my focus was not on him. Fear for Clara spurred me, and I burst through the shed door into the night, breathless and wild, searching the forest for any trace of my sister. The air was frigid against my skin, but no chill compared to the ice gripping my heart. I felt raw, vulnerable, laid bare against the threat looming in every shadow. Clara, I called, my voice cracking. I strained my ears, listening for any sound that might lead me to her breath, her whimper, anything that would signal she was safe. Then, lost in the darkness, I caught sight of a momentous flash of blonde hair, the twinkle of something bright. I took off, adrenaline propelling me forward, but as I neared, my heart plummeted at the sound of clasping hands and menacing laughter. Where are you, little girl? One of the men mocked. You can't hide forever. No, no, no. I muttered under my breath, racing toward the sound. I had to risk everything. I knew I could win back Clara, even if it meant facing their wrath. As I neared the clearing and pushed through the thick underbrush, I finally saw Hera's small figure crouched behind an ancient oak. Clara's breath was ragged, her eyes wide as she watched the two men comb through shadows, drawing closer and closer. I couldn't let them find her. Stay still, I whispered fiercely, urgency penetrating each word. Somehow, I hoped she could hear my heart, beating wildly against my ribcage, loud enough to drown out the darkness. Filled with instinct and fear, I made my choice. I wouldn't go through them. I would draw their attention away. I could do this. I had to. They were looking for me, not knowing that I was already standing in the eyes of the storm. "Hey!" I yelled, spinning back toward the men. "Over here!" Their heads snapped in my direction, confusion flickering on their faces. I bolted toward the underbrush, pulling deeper into the trees. My feet flew over roots and rocks as I darted through the forest, heart pounding like a war drum. But the sound of pursuit was right behind me. I felt the energy shift, a chill crawling beneath my skin as their footsteps quickened. Were they excited by the chase? Or was it the thrill of danger that chased them as relentlessly as they chased me? The woods echoed with their calls. "Get him! He's alone!" In that moment of isolation, I didn't feel alone. I thought of Clara, imagining her tender face, her light, and the way she always seemed to know how to make things better. I pushed through the pain, allowing the fiery reminder of our bond to center me. We were made of the same tenacious spirit, a shared past that none could ever take away, but with every stride, the brambles snagged at my limbs, each branch a cruel reminder of the path I had chosen. I could hear their breaths closing in on me. The escape I had hoped for grew close, then further away, an ethereal mirage just out of reach. Just then, a flash of silver caught my eye, a makeshift path carved between the trees, leading toward the riverbank. I would take it, a gamble of hope against impending doom. My gut told me to trust the instinct, so I veered sharply, running with everything I had. But before I could reach the river's edge, I felt Ida tugging on my arm, a powerful grip that halted my escape. I twisted, gasping, finding myself back in the clutches of the men. "Thought you could outsmart us, huh?" The man's voice purred with malicious glee, but I wouldn't let it break me. I struggled fiercely against his hold, refusing to lose hope. Then Clara's voice pierced through the noise. "Rowan!" In that instant, I froze, fear slicing through me like a blade. I turned, breath hitching at the sight of her emerging from the trees, eyes wide and desperate. "Let him go," she cried, her little voice a beacon of defiance. But it only fueled their wicked play. The danger of the moment swelled as they chuckled darkly at her resolve. My heart clenched painfully at the vulnerability she wore like armor. "Look at that," one of them jeered. "The little one thinks she can save her brother." I felt a surge of anger rise within me, mixed with the sharp edge of fear.
"Clara, get back."
But before I could finish my warning, the other man lunged toward her, hands outstretched like claws ready to ensnare. And that crucial second, the world tilted unexpectedly. I felt a warmth bloom within me, a flicker of strength ignited by the pure love I harbored for my sister, but also by the startling reunion of my past. It surged to the forefront. "Get away from her," I shouted, finding my voice amidst the turmoil, fueled by a deeper knowing this was no longer just about saving ourselves. It had become a fight against everything that had come before, and everything that still loomed ahead. And it was the moment when I suddenly realized the sound of a whistle carried through the air, piercing the tension like a crystalline bell. Someone was coming. Someone unexpected, and their intentions remained a mystery, shrouded by the shadows of what was yet to unfold. They would arrive before the dust settled, and I had no way of knowing if that intervention would be our salvation or our doom. I only knew one thing. One sacred truth buried beneath the fear: nothing would ever silence the love that bound Clara and me. The battle was just beginning. The forest seemed to pulse with an electric intensity as the whistle echoed, urging both hope and dread into my heart. How could I interpret the sound? In what way would this unknown force change the course of our grim tale? The men paused for just a moment, uncertainty flickering across their faces like shadows warring with the light of a distant moon. I seized the breath of hesitation, feeling Clara's hand gripping mine, our fingers intertwined like a thread of fate. My heart hammered, pounding in an untamed rhythm as I tried to draw strength from our bond. "Clara," I whispered urgently, lowering my voice so only she could hear. "We're going to move, but we have to stay before I could finish," one of the men snarled, shaking off their moment of uncertainty. "You think some whistle's going to save you?" He edged closer, a derisive smirk twisting his mouth. You're trapped like rats in a cage. No one's looking for farm maggots like you. But his arrogance was scattered like morning mist as the darkness of the trees parted, revealing a figure emerging from the depths of the night. Clad in a long coat with a hood that shrouded their features, the stranger stepped into the clearing. With each stride, they commanded the darkness, embodying both danger and sanctuary. Back away from them, the voice came deep and commanding, reverberating through the night like thunder across distant mountains. I inhaled sharply, surprise mingling with apprehension. Who was this? My heart plummeted and soared all at once, unsure if this presence meant salvation or another layer of chaos. The men exchanged wary glances, their bravado wavering. "And who the hell do you think you are?" One cocked his head. In reply, the figure pulled back their hood, revealing sharp features illuminated softly by the moonlight, eyes like polished coal, sharp and intense. "You're trespassing," they stated simply, the weight of authority heavy in their tone. For a moment, the world stood still. Each breath felt eternal as the tension in the air crackled like live wire. My gaze locked onto Clara, and the silent question echoed between us. Would we be freed, or were we to dive deeper into danger? The men, momentarily stunned, rallied their courage. "This doesn't have to get messy," one of them sneered, looking at the stranger with a mix of aggression and fear. "We just want the boy. Leave him out of this." But the cloaked figure stood steadfast, unwavering, their resolve like iron. "And if you think you have the right to take him, you're mistaken." In that precarious moment, I sensed a subtle challenge in the air, a battle, not just of strength but of wills. My heart raced, each thump carrying the weight of decisions made and unmade. I was terrified of what might happen next, yet unshakably rooted in the fierce love I held for Clara. The tension broke like a thunderous clap as the taller man charged forward, fists ready to strike, but the stranger was quicker. In a fluid motion that seemed almost balletic, they sidestepped and delivered a precise blow to his midsection. The man doubled over, gasping for air, and before I could fully comprehend the speed of the encounter, another kick sent him sprawling into the bushes. The second man hesitated, an expression of shock flashing across his face as he pulled a knife from his belt. "You won't get away with this." The cloaked figure merely tilted their head, their calm demeanor somehow managing to intimidate rather than reassure. "You will let them go, or you will regret it." The air sizzled with the undercurrents of violence, and I could feel Clara's pulse echoing in sync with my own. But no assurances could quell the fright coursing through me. Would I allow this stranger to take the stage? What secrets were hidden that we couldn't yet see? With the opportunity forged in chaos, I glanced down at Clara, who looked up at me, her eyes wide with trust and fear intertwined. "Rowan," she whispered, her voice breaking. That single utterance held the weight of a promise unspoken, the deep understanding that no matter where we went, our fate was irrevocably tied together. Just like in the past, before I had time to deliberate, I gripped her hand tighter. "Stay behind me." There was no further thought. I couldn't let her see fear consume me. I pivoted towards the conflict, ready to shield her from any harm, even if it meant facing the danger head-on myself. But the cloaked figure, aware of my resolve, called out, "No. Trust me." It was a command stitched with urgency that stole my breath, leaving me pondering the mystery of their intent. Just as another rush of wind swept through the clearing, the final threads of patience unraveled. The second man lunged forward in recklessness, blinded by rage. As I braced for impact, something wild shot through the air, a flash of silver spinning past me, hitting the man squarely in the shoulder. He cried out, staggering back as his knife fell to the ground, the fight leaving him as quickly as it had come. A shattering calm followed the chaos, punctuated only by the heavy sounds of our own breathing. "Clara," I gasped, willing my racing heart to steady. I turned protectively, but the sight of her pale and still gripped by fear filled me with a resolve deeper than self-preservation. Looking back toward the cloaked figure, I finally understood. This was a junction of paths we had not anticipated. Their presence had turned the tide in our favor, but I sensed more danger lurking, a greater truth that would unravel in time. All walls of safety were crumbling, and I wondered at the cost of their intervention. Then Clara gasped, and my heart dropped as she pointed at the body of the man now sprawled in the underbrush's face, even in shadow, strikingly familiar. "No, it can't be," I murmured, dread pooling in my stomach as an unsettling past clawed its way back to the surface like a nightmare too raw to shake. Please, not him. Not that connection. And just as I turned to face Clara, ready to shield her from the truth being unearthed, the cloaked figure stepped forward, their voice a whisper. "You must confront who you truly are, Rowan. You cannot run. Not any longer." The cliff of uncertainty loomed before me as the past whispered the secrets of my family, laying bare the entanglement of our lives. Everything I thought I understood was about to shatter. The chilling reality loomed heavy, suffocating the air around us like a thick fog as my eyes remained locked on the man lying in the dirt. Recognition shot through Maya's face from a life I had tried so relentlessly to escape. A wave of vertigo washed over me, leaving disorientation in its wake. I struggled to reconcile the echoes of my childhood with the chaotic present, grappling with memories I wished to bury. Clara's anxious breath pulled me back to the moment, her grip tightening on my hand. "Rowan, who is he?" she asked, trying to maintain a whisper, but I could hear the tremor in her words. I swallowed hard, torn between devastating truth and the need to protect her from the shadows that threatened to consume me. It's someone from my past," I stammered, my voice barely above a murmur, filled with dread. "Someone I never wanted to see again." The cloaked figure remained an enigmatic sentinel in the background, their intense gaze flickering with a myriad of unspoken words. "You can't hide from your history, Rowan," they reiterated, and for the first time, I noticed a flash of empathy in their otherwise steely demeanor. The pain of my past coiled tightly around my heart as I glanced back down at the man's bruises and scars that marked his face were more than simply battle wounds. They told stories of our shared history, of betrayals and familial ties that had forged the very fabric of my existence. Panic clawed at my throat, and I felt a mix of guilt and helplessness swell within me. The second man, now crumpled on the ground, moaned in agony, remnants of ferocity replaced by vulnerability. Glancing at his defeated form, I saw not an enemy, but a ghost from a life I had believed long buried. Gritting my teeth, I tried to silence the rush of memories flooding in me, father, the decisions that had led me to renounce all traces of connection. How could I escape this? How could I find peace when the past bled into my present with such brutality? The urgency in Clara's eyes pulled me back from the abyss of my thoughts. "Rowan, we need to move. They might come back," she urged, her voice quaking with concern. There was a fierce struggle within me as I weighed my options. Could I abandon this man, this remnant of who I had been, to save ourselves? "Let's go," I insisted, stepping backward, my heart fighting the battle between what I owed to my past and the desperate need to protect the person standing before me, the one who had breathed new life into my cautious existence. But as I turned away, my foot snagged against the roots of a nearby tree, forcing me to falter and reclaim my footing. With that one stumble came an overwhelming wave of sentiment I couldn't suppress. "Rowan!" Clara cried out, her voice casting ripples of desperation into the night. But it was the cloaked figure that broke through the tumult.
"Stop!"
they commanded, raising their hand with authority. I felt the weight of their gaze on me as if they could see past my fears to the truth I desperately tried to evade. "Why do you care about him?" I demanded, frustration mixing with fear.
"What does he mean to you, to me?"
"There is a legible thread connecting you both," the figure replied, their tone measured but heavy with meaning. "Every thread has a story to tell, even those draped in sorrow and loss. You cannot sever who you are, no matter how desperately you tried." I clenched my jaw, anger surging through me, but grounding me at the same time. "What are you saying? That I should care about him? I've spent my whole life trying to forget that part." "Sometimes, forgetting is not the same as healing," they replied, their words chillingly serene yet convicting. "You must confront your past before you can break free from the binds it has on you. You cannot run forever. Not from him, not from them." They gestured toward the incomplete monsters that were the remnants of the first men, still gathering their strength not far from the clearing. The tension mounted, swirling around us like the shadows that danced beneath the trees. Clara stepped closer, a tremor of fear in her voice. "Rowan, let's go. We have to. Think about our safety, not his." Her plea sank deep, and I felt torn between two different worlds, the one I lived in now, and the one I once fled from. But within that turmoil, a flicker of resolve ignited. If I wanted to truly break free, if we wanted to save ourselves, I needed to face my truth, not pretend it didn't exist. With a deep breath, I turned back towards the fallen figure, ready to step back into a history that had haunted me for far too long. "Tell me," I whispered, seeking the answers I had spent years running from. But as I looked into the depths of his eyes, the world around us shifted with a quickness that stole my breath. A figure materialized from the darkness behind him, an ally or foe I could not yet discern. With sharp movements, they advanced, bringing a wave of silent dread in their wake. In an instant, the fragile equilibrium we clung to shattered, new layers of tension intertwining with the past as the unexpected twilight revealed a figure I thought I would never see again, one that shattered my resolve and tossed me into a dangerous spiral of questions. All at once, I was forced to confront not only my past, but the tangled threads that tied us and the looming truth of who truly controlled our destinies. As I stared into the eyes of the Mani, had thought lost to the shadows of my life, a voice emerged from the depths of the encroaching darkness. "Rowan." It was a name carved from familiarity and pain, and as the figure stepped into the light, I stumbled back, struggling to comprehend the weight of it all. "What are you doing here?" I asked, the words escaping my lips like a prayer, a plea, a demand. He shook his head, the weariness of years written across his features. "I came to find you." Behind me, Clara pressed forward, confusion and fear battling for dominance. "Rowan, who is he?" She was trembling, gripping my hand tightly, and I could sense her unyielding loyalty mixed with a growing unease. "Clara, but I couldn't finish." The glimmer of hope that flickered inside me was extinguished by the chaos swirling around us. "He is your brother," the cloaked figure interjected, unexpected urgency lacing their voice. I felt the ground shift beneath me, the weight of the world threatening to tumble. "And he's here to help you confront what you've been running from all this time." The words reverberated through my core, sending shivers through me as memories I thought buried rushed forward like a river flooding its banks. I made a promise to myself to break free from that weight, that bond suffocating me with its implications. "No," I whispered fiercely, shaking my head, unwilling to look at the face of the past I had tried so desperately to bury. But before I could reinforce my retreat, my brother stepped closer, his eyes softening. "Rowan, I know you've tried to forget, but you can't do it alone. You need us." The plea was gentle, unexpected, and as the shadows gathered, yet again the men stirring behind us, their anger bubbling like a cauldron, I felt an undeniable pull toward the humanity reflective in my brother's eyes. His presence stirred a recognition deep within me, a part of me that had long been dormant and hidden in the recesses of shame and anger. Clara shifted beside me, and I saw the strength that coiled within her fragile frame. "Rowan," she said, voice steady despite the fear, "we can't waste any more time. We need to go.
Now."
The imminent threat hovering in the periphery told me precisely how little time we had left. My mind was a cacophony of confusion torn between the bonds of blood and the desire to shatter the chains of the past once and for all. All the while, Clara watched me, her faith a beacon, urging me to defy the dark memories that threatened to engulf us. "Rowan." My brother called again, his voice cutting through the din of my thoughts as if reaching for an anchor in my tumultuous sea of doubt. "They may try to take you, but we can't let that happen again. Remember what we stood for. Remember the light." The word light hit me, like a flame igniting a pile of dry leaves. I seen it in the echo of Clara's laughter, the innocence I vowed to protect. It was the laughter of a sister who believed in my strength, who clung to hope made tangible through love. It was everything I had fought to shield her from, all wrapped in every stolen moment of beauty, As my anger began transmuting into resolve, I filled my lungs, steadying my breath. Am not a prisoner of my past. I've fought too hard, lost too much. My voice carried weight, reverberating through me, and I felt the momentum begin to shift. With one hand, I squeezed Clara's, turning back to face the darkness looming behind us, me brother at my side, stepping fully into the light of revelation. We are more than the sum of our mistakes, I said, feeling a fierce pride rising within me. And I will protect us all. The men lurking in the shadows recoiled slightly, their bravado receding as my words carried the wild energy of defiance. I no longer felt alone. My brother was here, fighting alongside me in a way I hadn't anticipated. Together, we could confront our shared past not as enemies, but as scars woven into the fabric of our lives. Get out, I shouted, my declaration roaring through the stillness. You will not break us. But just then, the world exploded in a flurry of motion. Me brother lunged forward, catching the nearest man off guard, while I twisted to protect Clara, pulling her close. In one swift movement, our fight transformed into unity, unleashing a force that flowed from our pooled strength. For every punch thrown, for every thrust aimed against us, I felt the surge of love moving through me, empowering my resolve, igniting an unrelenting fire of clarity. I would not fall. I would rise. In the chaos of combat, I glimpsed Clara's face, illuminated in the shifting shadows around us. She was no longer the frightened little girl under my wings. She had transformed into a resilient flame, burning brightly against the darkness surrounding us, the true embodiment of everything I fought for. Sensing the electricity in the air, the whirlwind of familial love, I saw our victory becoming tangible in the echoes of resilience that beat with each breath. Every strike, every movement was motivated by the fierce protection woven between us. And as my brother and I fought side by side, a wall of safety encasing Clara, I knew that our bond was forged anew through the shadows. New life breathed into the fading echoes of our past. Minutes later, the sound of chaos fell silent. Exhausted, I stood panting next to my brother as he struggled to catch his breath. The surging wave of adrenaline subsided, leaving an intricate tapestry of silent promises hanging thick in the air. We had fought, together, to reclaim our right to exist outside the shadows of the past, but as the dust settled, so too did acknowledgement of our shared history. Bittersweet truth lingered on the edges of my mind, grappling to reconcile the past with our present.
Why?
I finally turned to my brother, voice a whisper laced with vulnerability. Why return now? The corners of his mouth curled into a bittersweet smile, but his eyes held no resentment, only unwavering understanding. Because some ties can't be broken, Rowan. They twist in our hearts, carving paths we're destined to follow. You deserve to understand where you came from.
To heal.
The revelation hit me, reverberating deep within. Healing was never an individual path. Our journey carried echoes of not just who we had been, but who we could become together. With a shared glance at Clara, both of us breathing heavily, I felt conviction solidify within my chest, shaking off the remnants of fear in favor of love. You're right. To move forward, we need to face the past. Together, the bonds that once held me captive transformed from chains to tendrils, roots that connected us, intertwining our paths now and forever. Just as hope began to swell within me, the world shifted again. A figure emerged from the Clearinga warrior, bold and relentless. And as they stepped toward me, a glint of recognition passed between us. The one who'd helped, the one who'd shielded us from darkness. M.R. Hawkins, are you both all right? He asked, breath steady, but filled with gravitas. But before I could respond, the first threads of understanding wrapped around me, a warmth seeping into the chasms of forgiveness I didn't know I needed to extend. Yes, I breathed a word heavy with promise and commitment. We are at I end that moment. I realized that while our pasts had intertwined, our futures woven in warmth and light now lay ahead. We had faced the darkness together, stitched together through our shared journey. Clara, my brother, Mr. Hawkins, we were now a tapestry of healing and hope, bound irrevocably to one another, and as my heart swelled, I understood the beauty of forgiveness. Family could embrace tumultuous paths and weave new stories from the fragments of the past, stories crafted not from fear, but from love. Together, we stepped into the light. Together, we would face whatever came next. Together, I whispered again, conviction steeped in love and hope enveloping us. As the sun began to rise, illuminating the horizon with shades of gold and pink, I realized, for the first time, that the shadows were merely a backdrop, a place where we'd been shaped, not defined. And now, as dawn broke fresh and vibrant, I held tight to the promise of new beginnings and the lives we were destined to lead. "We're home," I said softly, warmth radiating from my heart. The journey ahead shimmered bright with possibilities. And with that, I stepped forward, heart open to new horizons of future shimmering against the shadows of the past.